Good afternoon and welcome to this week's Street Soccer United podcast. It's Keith Mabbott here, the founder CEO of the Street Soccer Foundation. And on today's show, I'm really pleased to be joined by Simon O'Connell, Financial Planner and Director at the Tilney Group. Thanks so much for being on the show with us today, Simon. To get things started, we always like to offer our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves and just give a bit about, what you're currently up to work-wise. So tell us a bit about your role and what Tilney does.
Hello, Keith. Thank you very much for asking me. So I'm a Chartered Financial Planner and Director at Tilney. We're a financial advice and wealth management company. We've got about 1,200 staff around the UK, and we've managed assets and investments of around about 25 billion. For the last 20 years, I've been advising individuals and businesses, educating them to make financial, sensible, informed choices about their finances. And for the last couple of years, I've been training solicitors, barristers and accountants in finances to help them when they're dealing with their clients. I've also just been asked to take on the role as Head of Business Development for the South East, which covers 11 advisors. If you'd have asked me 3 or 4 years ago, I'd have said, no way, I wouldn't wanted to do that. But actually, I'm really enjoying it. So I think it's never too late to learn or to change and find a different direction and different path in life as well.
Excellent. So growing up, what were you like as a young boy? How was your upbringing?
Yeah, I think growing up was I'm very happy. I don't remember being particularly rich or poor. Mum and Dad, they were married 56 years ago. I've got a younger sister called Lisa, who's 3 years younger than me. I remember even when I was a teenager, I had 2 sets of grandparents and great-grandparents. I've got quite a few aunts and uncles and cousins I'm still close to. When I was growing up, my dad designed oil refineries, and he was always very busy. I remember him working a lot in evenings and weekends. And I remember him saying he managed over 100 staff, so I think that kept him very busy. He also used to travel a fair bit. So I remember he used to spend a fair bit of time in the Middle East. He went to places like Saudi Arabia and Dubai. I remember he had 6 months in Holland. And my sister and I must have been reasonably young then, because my main memory of that, or for both of us, is that we used to look forward to him coming home every weekend. He used to come home on a Friday night, go back on a Monday. And when he came home, as soon as he got in, he used to bring us this lovely foreign chocolate that we used to love. And that was our main memory of it. Bless him. Even though he'd been away all week, probably happy to see us. And also, when we were teenagers, he went to work in California for 4 months, and we took a month out of school in the middle of winter, which was fantastic. So I remember we left and it was thick snow, and we got over there and we flew to Los Angeles, and then for a month my dad drove us around, and we went to San Diego, Arizona, Nevada, up to San Francisco. We did something like about 3,000 miles in a month, which was a lot of driving. And I remember leaving in heavy snow, and then we had Christmas Day on the beach in the sun. So that was a great memory from when I was younger. So I'd say overall my childhood was probably happy and comfortable, I think.
So a younger sister, 3 years your junior. That's exactly the same as me, and I didn't know that about you. But you're talking there about your dad and his job and the places it took him. Just unbelievable, isn't it? Sometimes what people do. But, your family therefore as well, sort of travelling with him. And the reference of travelling 3,000 miles in a month is just incredible. But the standout for me there is you saying that, having Christmas Day in the sunshine, wouldn't that be a thing? Wonderful memories there. So you and I, we have known each other for a few years now, and I remember a couple of years or so back when you came onto our Street Soccer TV series that we were doing, taking part in our interview and challenges that we set you. As you might remember, it was a couple of our young ambassadors that sort of stepped forward basically, didn't they, and sort of challenged you with a few football things on the pitch, for which you did very, very well, I might add. But back then you mentioned you're a big Liverpool fan, and congratulations, obviously, by the way. But would you say you're a sort of real sporting family?
Yeah, I think we were very much a sporting family. I think we always have been. When my dad was younger, he ran a football club for quite a few years. When I got a bit older, he ran a table tennis club for many years, and in fact I played table tennis and I was a captain for about 20 odd years in the same club. My dad was also on the committee of a golf club, and we both played golf for quite a few years, although I don't really play so much now. I was a member of a gym probably about 20 years as well. I was always interested in football. I used to watch a bit of rugby, cricket. I'd probably watch most stuff that was on. I remember when I was younger, me and my dad We used to love American football when that used to get shown a fair bit. We used to watch things like Ski Sunday. We played snooker, I think, for quite a few years. I remember we went along for a bit of fun for a couple of weeks, and we ended up playing for about 20 years. We had a dartboard at home, and I remember playing when I was at school. School holidays, we used to play darts in the living room, much to my mum's annoyance. I was always interested in the big events like the Olympics and the World Cup. My sister is still a yoga teacher now. That's what she does for a living. And my wife, she was in the London Olympic organising committee, and she ran the hockey venue. So she worked on that for a couple of years. So I would say, growing up, we were a big family of sports fanatics, and I'd say we still are.
Darts in the living room. That's a very interesting one. There is no way I'd ever get away with that, Simon. But well done for doing so. But I think now my question was more of an understatement. I think from what you've just said there, yours is probably the most sporting family I now know about. But coming back to what you do now, I know you're an incredibly qualified professional. You sort of touched the service when you opened up that you've worked in financial services for a good sort of 30 years or whatever it's been, and it's a long time. And I wondered just basically whether you were kind of academic growing up, in that regard. Did you sort of take to education quite naturally, in terms of having a clear pathway to help set kind of where you've come to now?
No, to be honest, I hated school. I wasn't very academic, and I think it's probably a misconception that most people I've met over the years probably think I went to university because where I am now. But actually, I left school with 2 O-levels and a few GCSEs, not very good grades. I remember my mum and dad even had a private tutor in for me from when I was about 15 or 16 for a year or so on things like maths and science, because I just remember I just wasn't very good. I couldn't really pick it up very quickly. And I think even with the private tutor, I don't think I improved much. So having not got very good results, where I thought, well, I better go back to sixth form and buckle up. And then I did an hour in the sixth form because I went in at about 9 o'clock. And I think by 10, I'd realised that I never liked school. What on earth was I doing back there? So I left and then decided to go to college instead. So I did a business studies course for a year. And then I left there and I started work at 17 in central London. I worked in a clothes shop, and I used to pack some of the clothes. I used to stack the shelves, sort in the post, and did that for a couple of years. Really enjoyed it. I think it's quite exciting when you're young and you're working in central London. There's a lot going on. People are really nice. And then a couple of years later, my mum saw an advert in a paper, I think, and she said, "Look, you're really good at facts and figures. You've always been interested in football results and league tables and all that sort of stuff, and music, facts and figures. There's a job here in a financial services company. Why don't you apply for it?" And I thought, yeah, fair enough. So I applied and I got the job. And then I realised I actually enjoyed the job. I must do, because I've been in it for 30 years now. And over quite a few years, I ended up passing 17 different exams. I ended up at chartered status. So when I got to the age 41, I ended up with an honours degree in financial services. And at the time, that put me in the top 5% of highest qualified financial advisors in the UK. So I think one of my proudest moments was really looking back at school and realising I wasn't very good, to going up and collecting awards in London and what I'd achieved over those years. But I think it's just finding a passion and something that you enjoy doing. It's difficult when you don't enjoy it. It's to put the effort in. So it's finding something that you really enjoy, and I think then you will put the effort in.
Did I hear you right earlier, though, what you just said there? Spending an hour in sixth form. I mean, that has to be a national record, surely. I wonder if we can look into that. I might get one of my colleagues to look into that. It's got to be a Guinness World Record, an hour in sixth form. But I love how your mum became your personal job seeker for you as well. I wonder what that says. But what you've said there on a serious, Simon, it's fantastic. It's really inspiring. You're saying basically that school wasn't really for you. You found things quite tough and difficult. Yet you've gone on to receive a degree and awards up in London for what you've since gone on to achieve. Stemmed, what's the important thing there for me is from a pure passion of yours, which has no doubt helped with your focus. your determination to want to excel and do as well as you possibly can. I think that's exactly it. You finding a real purpose and what you're good at doing and what you enjoy doing, and then you can really work wonders. So in that, I mean, during your career climb, did you ever have any big challenges that you can recall, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest challenges in work, and I think it's something that I learned quite early on, was just a constant change. I remember the first couple of years in financial services thinking, oh, this is just annoying because just never ending. So you think you learn something and then something changes. And what I've learned to do over the years is sort of embrace it. It's all good learning experience. And sometimes it helps you find what you like and what you don't like. I know when I was younger, and I know solicitors do it now, for example, or some solicitors do, where when you're training, you may end up with 3 or 4 or 5 different departments to work in over, say, 6 months to a year in each. And what that does is sometimes you think you've got a passion or a liking for a particular area, and then sometimes you realise actually it was something else that sparks your interest, and you end up going down that route instead. I've also been made redundant 4 times over the course of about 20 years in 4 different companies. So I think, again, you can sort of embrace it and try and do something else, or you can just sit back and moan and sort of moan it's someone else's fault. But I think appreciate that it's the job and the role that's made redundant, not the person. So try not to take it personally. In fact, when I look back, one of the things that's probably changed my life the most was being made redundant. But back in 1990, I decided I was given a year's notice, and I hadn't really been there very long, and I thought, well, I don't really want to stay. So for some reason or other, I just decided I'd go and work abroad for the summer. So I packed up my bags and went to work abroad. And in fact, I was really enjoying it. I went to Corfu. And when I'd been there a couple of months, and I rang my sister up and said, she was in the travel business, and I said, look, you'd really like it over here, it's great. Why don't you come over and spend a bit of time with me in Corfu? And she did, and 30 years later, she's still living there. She speaks fluent Greek, so does her daughter. She's got a lovely place there overlooking the lake. So if it hadn't been for the fact that I was made redundant, we would never have gone, and I wouldn't have ever called her, and she wouldn't have ended up living there. When I got back, I'd spent the summer there, and I think you realise, actually, it's nice to have some warm weather, but having 3 or 4 months of sort of 90, 100 degrees just wears you down. And I was quite looking forward to getting back to the UK and getting a bit of rain and a bit of cold weather. And then I'd only been back in the UK for a couple of weeks, and I went out one weekend and I met my future wife. And then the following week, I started a job in financial services. So that one decision to be made redundant actually changed all our lives, because my wife and I have now been married for 25 years this week.
You mentioning changing that, Simon, I think that's for me what's really important here, and it's often a real big one for a lot of people, isn't it? I think more often than not, the reason why people resist change is that fear of the unknown. But I think 2 ways you can really effectively deal with change is exactly what you've basically said there, that, you embrace the change and you be proactive with the situation. I think, for you then, there's the example, you were made redundant, but it actually brought about an incredible new start and way of life for your sister after the call that you made, being proactive with a bit of foresight. And it's where, and obviously you went on to meet your wife, and happy anniversary, by the way. But it's brilliant advice, Simon, and it's really important. Change is it's a matter of life. It does come about, it does occur. And when it does, really try as best as you can to embrace that change and be proactive and think through the positives of what you can make happen. But coming back to you and your role now with Tilney, I understand you're relatively new into the group, because I think you joined back in January. But what does your current position at Tilney kind of entail on a day-to-day basis? What is it kind of, that gets you out of bed in the morning?
What I find most rewarding, and what I think gets me out of bed every day, is the changing people's lives. I think I don't appreciate that enough, probably. It's a privilege that people trust me and they open up enough to be honest, and they tell me things about their sort of finances and their lives that they possibly wouldn't even discuss with their family and friends. I enjoy educating people, giving individuals and business owners confidence to ask the right questions and be comfortable with their decisions. I always appreciate that it's their money, not mine, but hopefully I can lead them down the right path and give them a sort of general plan and a route of direction. and then also, they trust me enough that I can give them that advice and they can follow it, and then it makes them sleep easy at night. So I think that's our goal really, is to make people sleep easy at night, and knowing that they're hopefully doing the best thing that they can. I also like to challenge people's ideas and perceptions. Sometimes people say to you, "Oh, I like this," or "I don't like that." But it's always worth trying to dig a bit deeper and saying, "Well, why don't you like it, or why do you like something?" And then sometimes challenge them if sometimes they've just gone down the wrong route, or they just don't understand something, or it's never been explained to them. So it's just taking the time to sort of hopefully educate people a bit more and challenge their ideas, and see whether what they were thought was right or wrong. But just realise that also it's just a privilege for people to open up and to have the ability to change people's lives.
What I really love about that answer, Simon, is that it's so aligned with my own purpose towards the work and the mission of the foundation. At Street Soccer, and listen, I know we're obviously talking in different contexts in this sense. Obviously yours financial services and advisory, and ours being charitable endeavour. And through the provision that we offer through Street Soccer, but actually they're so similar. Your ability to use your position to help change people's lives, to help educate and support people, to challenge, individuals' ideas and perceptions. It's all exactly what we do through our work, the academy and school provision. So I entirely get that. What a purpose. Fantastic. So looking back over what you've achieved and what you do now, how far you've come, in a reflective mode, if you were 18 or 19 and just starting out, what key advice do you think you might give yourself?
Cool. What would I do if I was 18 or 19 now? What advice would I give myself? There's probably a few things. I'd probably say, don't worry too much about what other people think of you. Just accept that some people will like you and some people won't. I think when you're younger, you worry too much about whether your people like you or not. But I think as you get older, it seems to be less relevant, and you just accept it. I would say also accept challenges when you're given the opportunities and be positive. I think it's easy to fall down on your comfort zone and just say no. Sometimes you might not get asked again, and I've had a few challenges over the years where it would be easy just to sit back and say, "Oh no, I don't really fancy doing that." But actually they've been some of the most rewarding, because sometimes that turns around into something that you really enjoyed, or that you may never have been given that opportunity a second time if you'd have turned it down. I'd also say spend time with people that you enjoy spending time with and that add value to your life. And play to your strengths. Don't worry too much about your weaknesses. You can't be good at everything. If you think about a football team, if you're a goalkeeper, you might be good at goal, but you can't be scoring loads of goals at the other end. Equally, if you're a striker, you have to rely on your defenders and your goalkeeper. So just play to your strengths, and then let other people do other things that you're not so good at, and don't try and be good at everything, because it's not always that easy.
You're on a bit of a roll now here, Simon. I just absolutely love what you've just said there. First, the point about not worrying so much about what people may or may not think of you. Absolutely. The focus is to have and go out and invest your time to spend it with people who raise you up, who add to your life, who can offer you that encouragement, who can offer you that support as you might need. And then, as you've said, with the football analogy, you're absolutely right. Life in itself is a team game. We learn how to play to our own strengths. We know our own strengths, but it's about getting quality teammates around you who, can help you learn, progress, achieve, and frankly, enjoy the journey as much as we possibly can. So fantastic, brilliant advice. Thank you. Now, we've done it again. We always do it, but obviously we've come to the end. As everyone now knows, we always like to wrap each Street Soccer United podcast with a final question, which is this: what's the best advice you've ever been given, and by who?
The best advice I've been given was probably by my dad. I think he always said, treat others how you wish to be treated. And I've always thought actions speak louder than words. He was always very generous with his time and his money. He was always very polite. He always said please and thank you. He always made people feel good, and he'd put a smile on their face. He'd always ask them how they were. And I think it's probably a bit like you, Keith, actually. I think people come away, I always come away from chatting to you thinking that you've made a positive impact, and that you make people smile, and people always feel good about chatting to you. And so I think my sort of motto now, I think, what can I do for you, not what can you do for me? I think it's easy for people to blame everyone else and say it's other people's fault, but just take responsibility and think about your own actions and try and help other people, because I think that's far more rewarding, just going out with the attitude of what can I do to help you. So hopefully that's been useful. Thank you very much for asking me, Keith. It's been a pleasure chatting to you.
What a fantastic finish. It's like, Simon, you've put the number 9 shirt on here for the mighty Reds, collected the ball and struck one in the top corner with that answer. It's just brilliant advice to end on. To treat others how you wish to be treated, but beyond that, be actively looking to put a smile on someone's face. Ask yourself each day, what can I do for someone? Or, how can I help someone today? I can't tell you just how powerful that advice is, because the bottom line is it genuinely works, and on so many levels. I think that's from both you and me there, Simon, wishing all of our listeners, just to go out and make that a habit. Fantastic. Thank you so much again there, Simon. You've all listened today to Simon O'Connell, Financial Planner and Director at the Tilney Group, a fantastic supporter of ours and the Street Soccer Foundation. So again, please be sure to tune in again next week for our next podcast interview.